Welcome to Female Voices, Life and Loss with your hosts, Teresa Reiniger and Wayna Berry.
Welcome back to Female Voices, Life and Loss. I'm Teresa.
And I'm Wayna.
Join us for each episode as we explore lived stories, offer gentle insight, and hold space for what it means to navigate life after loss. This is a space for women carrying grief, loss, and life transitions, especially the ones held quietly while still showing up for everyday life. This podcast offers language for what you are feeling and guidance for who you are becoming. And now your hosts, Teresa Reiniger and Wayna Berry.
Hello and welcome back to Female Voices, Life and Loss. I am your host, Teresa Reiniger, and today I am joined by Rebecca Bunt. And this conversation that I know is going to resonate deeply with so many of you. Rebecca, alongside her husband, is the co-owner of a cluttered cleaner franchise. New to me. I think what we talked about is pretty new to the whole area, the whole United States. But what makes their work so impactful isn't just what they do, it's their why they do it. As only children, her and her husband both, they have experienced the profound loss of 3 out of 4 of their parents, the loss of them. So Rebecca and her husband know firsthand what it feels like to walk into a home filled with memories, belongings, and decisions that feel overwhelming in the middle of grief. Rebecca also shares the heartbreak of losing her mother-in-law during COVID without the chance of a final goodbye. That loss became a turning point, the beginning of a deeper calling to step away from 25-year career, my gosh, in the banking and mortgage industry and into work that truly supports people in some of the life's most challenging seasons. Now, through their work, they come alongside individuals and families, and we're going to talk a lot about this, and help them navigate loss, transitions, and overwhelm, helping them clear space while holding space. Rebecca is also a wife, a mom to 2 teenage girls. I love girls. I have 3 of them. And someone who deeply values family connection and the simple joys of life. Good food, good wine, yeah, and meaningful time together. So Rebecca, I'm so grateful you're here to share your story, your heart with us today. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.
You are so welcome. So many things that you shared with me. I'm like, yes. Okay, let's talk about it. I've been through that. I've done that. Yes, let's talk about all of those things. So most recently, cleaning out the memories and all of the things from my parents' home. That was, I wish I would have known you.
Yeah.
Although my 12 siblings would have not probably been okay with that. But I would have been okay. So I'd love to start with your story. Can you share a little bit about you and what led you and your husband into this work?
So, and I'll try to get through it without, losing my mind and crying. But anyway, 2021, we lost my mother-in-law to COVID. It was probably one of the hardest things I've ever dealt with. Because, normally when you lose people, grandparents and those sorts of things, they're ready to go. She wasn't ready to go. But then, so that was tough. But then about a year later, my father-in-law moved to an assisted living community and, spatially planning for what he can take with him, what will fit, that sort of thing. And then he wanted to sell the house, which is fine. We don't want it. We don't need it. But we've got all this stuff to go through.
Yeah.
And not only all the stuff, but we didn't necessarily know what was valuable because outside of even the monetary value, but what was great Aunt Mildred's and where did it come from? So we had all this stuff and we had no real navigation for how to take care of it. And we had 2 careers and 2 younger children that had activities and all the things. And so when do I have time to clean out this house? It's 2 miles away from my house, but I still have to take time away from everything to go down there and do it. So, it took us 6 or 8 weeks of nights and weekends and all the things to go through all the things in their house. And thankfully, my husband has some cousins that live close that helped us with some of it. But a lot of it was just, what do I do with all this stuff? You know? And so that's really what kind of the background. So then fast forward to November, we found this opportunity to own a franchise doing just that, helping people go through their house and either declutter to downsize. You know, you have people that have lived in their house for 30 or 40 or 50 years and are moving on to the next phase of their life, whether it's a smaller home or an assisted living or something like that. And they have all this stuff. And what do I do with all this stuff? Like, my kids don't want it, you know? Yeah. So how do I navigate all of this stuff? So that's really what we want to help people do, so that when they're going through that overwhelming situation that we were in, that they have some help. So we kind of jumped at the chance, and, you know, here we are. We are very faithful people and believe that this was one of God's directions for us. You know, I mean, yes, we've been through it. And I will say we lost Tim's dad last July. So we had some life insurance money. We had the opportunity to do it financially and just at that point in life. So we just jumped in. Sounds crazy, but, you know, it just felt right. So.
Yeah. And I would just say, because of what you said, for sure, I am definitely a woman of faith, and I believe things are put in our path for a reason. And you definitely, and our eyes are more open to them when they are very much aligned with experiences that we've had. Yeah. And with you just experiencing that, going through that as only children, I can't even imagine. Remember, I just said I have 12 siblings, so I can't even imagine that. Yeah. And so to have gone through that, you know, as only children, how difficult, but for this opportunity to come to you, that is amazing. Perfect. God's plan, for sure.
I mean, from the very beginning, it's been God's plan. I mean, I just turned 50 in November, and this came up right around that time. I was like, I don't want to work in the bank and mortgage industry for another 12 or 15 years till I retire. It just felt right, like the right timing, the right thing. So, you know.
Yeah. And I want to go back to what you said about, was that aunt so-and-so's or whatever, you know. I can remember that at my mom and dad's house when we went through stuff, like, where did this come from? Right. Like, some of it, my older siblings knew. That was great grandma's, that was whatever, but there were things. But I think about that even in my own home. Like, I have things now that have come from both sides of the family, from grandparents or great grandparents. So how do I make sure, you know, so this is always going through my head. How do I make sure that my children, my daughters know this is from great grandma? And so I don't know if you have recommendations, but I can tell you what I do. There's a little Post-it note, or there's something attached to that item, whether it's displayed or it's packed away, so that they know, so that at least they know this is your great grandma's, and then decide, you know, keep it or not keep it, you know, but to mark those things. Yeah.
Well, and I will say there is an app. I know there's lots of apps out there, but there's one that we have used a little bit that we like. It's called Artifacts. It's kind of spelled a little different. It's ARTIFCTS, but it's designed to where you can take a picture of an item, and then you can either voice record or type out a description of what the item is, where it came from, why it's important, that sort of thing. And we really like the option that you can use your voice to record it. So your grandkids could have a voice recording of you talking about why that thing is so important to you and where it came from. And then sometimes it's easier for people then to get rid of that item, because they know that the legacy of why it's important to them will still live on through that app. Because they can share it with their family. They can share it with their siblings. You know, hey, remember great grandma's red tablecloth or whatever it is. And then the whole family can share in the memory of that thing and why it's important. So things like that are helpful. Yeah.
I love that. I'm going to have to look into that. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Love that. Yeah. So when you walk into a space, into a home, the belongings, the memories, all of that stuff. And you're probably walking in many times, I would guess, because they need to downsize, or they've lost someone and then now they need to clean things out. But either way, I would say you're navigating, supporting them through kind of some grief of moving and getting rid of things or the loss of someone. And that's difficult in itself. But how do you navigate your own grief along with their grief?
Yeah.
I mean, people ask me that question all the time. Like, how do you do that? So I'm asking that question of you because it's asked of me all the time.
Yeah. Well, I will say it's kind of twofold. I mean, if we're working with a client who is the one that's doing the moving, I want to know all the stories. Like, your kids may be tired of hearing the story about whatever the thing is, but I haven't heard it. I'll listen to your story. And a lot of times that's just what people want, is to tell somebody else, here's the story behind the thing. And I think the thing that kind of helps us through that is knowing that we can relate to that situation, in that we've been there, we've been through that whole thing. So if I can help somebody navigate that, it helps me at the same time with that healing journey, you know, because I know what it's like to navigate that unknown. So sometimes it makes it easier for us to be able to say, I know what you're going through. And then sometimes that's just enough for people to, okay, they do know what I'm going through.
Yeah. And I love that you said it's part of, it's a piece of your healing too, that you receive healing from that yourself, and you're supporting them in their healing, because you're absolutely right. Sharing stories of loved ones and about things, there's so much healing that goes into that, and just having those people that will listen. So I love that you're a person that will listen to all of those stories. That's amazing in itself. I love that so much. So going back to one of the things that we talked about, I talked about it in the introduction and you talked about it, was the loss of your mother-in-law during COVID without having a chance to say goodbye. That's such a specific kind of grief.
Yeah.
So how has that impacted you? And what would you say was part of that healing? Because that is just so hard.
It is hard.
To be in that position.
Yeah. And I don't know if, to be honest, if I've really fully grieved that, just because, like I said, you know, before that was really just losing grandparents, and, you know, they're old and they're ready to go. They're ready to go to heaven and that sort of thing. But for me to not get that chance to talk to her, like, I got to go and in the hospital with her, but she was not conscious. So I sat and talked and rambled on and read cards and letters, the things that people had said. And I was at least given that opportunity. But, you know, I think for me, the thing that has really changed is trying to make sure that people know how I feel about them, because I know that she loved me like a daughter. So making sure that people know that going forward, because I don't want anybody to question, you know, especially my girls. Like, I tell them every day in the morning when they're leaving, love you, have a great day. At the end of the day, either text them if they're not home yet, or, you know, right before bed, I love you, because I know they know that, but I'm never going to want to ever think that they had a question.
Yeah.
What if it's the last time I talk to them? You know, I want them to know for sure, 100%, mom loved me no matter what. So, you know, it sounds kind of simple, but at the same time, it's very important to me to make sure that they understand that. So
that's super important, because as a grief specialist, I hear that a lot. Like that morning we were arguing about something so trivial, you know, and now they're no longer here. And so there's this guilt, there's this heaviness, because those words of I love you or whatever weren't spoken. They were other types of words. And so it is so important. I mean, of course, there's going to be times where we disagree. We're human beings. But I love that you're very consciously aware and very much want to make sure that you tell them, no matter what, I love you.
Yeah.
That is super important for the audience to hear that. Yeah.
But not related to anything. It's, you hear of instances where people don't talk to their parents, or they don't talk to their children, or whatever. You know, I've told them there's never going to be a time that I don't love you and want the best for you. So no matter what it is, we can talk through it. You know, we can work through it. So that's just, you know, just from that experience makes it super important to me, that they always know.
Yeah. So going back to 25 years in banking and mortgage. So with working with people that, I mean, you were moving into something super exciting, and the next phase of what you wanted to do. But I know too, there was probably some struggles with that, a little bit of a loss and a grief with what was familiar and known. And now we're going into something completely different. So when you realize that you were going to do that, what kind of emotions and feelings really stirred in you? Because I could imagine there were definitely some shifts, big shifts that had to happen, emotionally and physically for you.
It is weird, like working for somebody else for so long.
Yeah.
Different somebody else through the whole journey. But, somebody else always told you, you're going to be here at this time, you're going to do this thing, this is how much you're going to make, like, all the things. And now I have to do the things. I have to make it work. I have to put in the effort. But knowing that my husband, so he just left his job about a month ago.
Okay.
He works in hospice, which makes him also that, caregiver type person. So he left his job as well because we are so passionate about this opportunity to help people, to really help people. I mean, doing mortgages and helping people get into a house is great. And it feels great and it's helping people. But this is a different level of helping people. This is, something that they will always remember, how they were able to get that help navigating something that's so just overwhelming and disconcerting, and you just don't know what's ahead. So, having that opportunity to do something like this where we can actually feel like we're helping people was worth it. That loss of identity, I guess you could say, because that's what I always do. Well, I work for a mortgage company. Oh, well, now it's a little more than that, right?
Yeah. So I need to make sure that I have your card, that I make sure that my kids have your card, because they have already said when something happens to you, why I put labels on things now. But I love that idea of the app. Is like, we're just getting a dumpster, And I'm like, okay. But, and just, we always say to them, well, your dad, he is all about money and stuff. Well, you never know where he might put it. So it's like, look through things, just like look through things. There's some cool things. And I have a daughter, I would say 2 daughters that are pretty sentimental. The other, not so much, but I'm like, okay, I could just,
they already told me they don't want my stuff.
Yeah, and that's how my girls are. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So how do you, like, when you're really working with somebody to clean out, I'm going to say either just downsizing, or there's been someone that has died and you need to completely clean out. There is so much overwhelm. I just feel that overwhelm with my parents' home when we did that, his parents' home when that happened many years ago. And then just even trying to get my home, some of the stuff cleared out. So much overwhelm, and it can keep you very paralyzed in, oh my gosh, what do I do with this? Why do you think that is? And how do you help people? If you can describe, how do you help them get past that overwhelm? And you may have already said it, and that paralyzing.
Yeah. Well, I will say decision fatigue is real.
Yes.
We know that. So just acknowledging that decision fatigue is going to be a part of the equation. So depending on how much stuff the person has to go through and how overwhelming it is for them, sometimes we want to break it down into bite-sized pieces, right? You've heard the phrase, how do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. So that's kind of one of the strategies is, okay, we're going to think about the whole house today. We're going to focus on this closet, this bedroom, and we're going to go through and what can we find a home for at some place that takes donations, that helps people, so that you can give this thing a new life. We're not just throwing it out. We're not just throwing it in a dumpster or putting it in a landfill. We want to try to reuse as much as we can to help other people, right? And even some of the little things that you can start with, like a linen closet. How many towels and sheets and things that you don't need anymore can we take to an animal shelter? Easy. It's done. You don't have that connection with those things. Like nobody has a favorite towel, really, right? Yeah. So we can tackle some of those things that aren't quite so emotional.
Okay.
Or maybe attack some emotional stuff with some unemotional stuff, right? So we'll work on that linen closet and that dresser, right? And we'll figure out smaller pieces, because some things you can just get rid of. I don't need any of that stuff anymore. The other things, so we can kind of tackle it as a smaller approach. If we have that time, then that's helpful, right? Because then it's not quite so overwhelming.
Good.
Yeah. So that would be, and for people looking to figure out how to get their house ready, we like to, same thing, like spend 10 minutes a day and go through one thing, because then it's not quite so overwhelming. Go 10 minutes a day, 5 days in a row, and then take a couple days off. So you have some, just like work, right? So you have some time to just decompress and not think about it.
Yeah.
And then on Monday, you start again, 10 minutes, because 10 minutes is really doable for a lot of people. So I'd say most of our experience has been just taking it by pieces.
Nice.
And then it's not quite so overwhelming.
Yeah, I love that. I share with people when I work with them that they have to go through things, sort of that same concept. It's like, don't plan on doing the whole day, or if you're on a deadline. And a lot of times it's like, well, we need to go through things because we need to find pictures or whatever. But I still encourage them to set a time frame. A lot of times I'll do 20 minutes and they're like, I'll never get through this in 20 minutes. And I'm like, no, this is what I want you to do. I want you to do 20 minutes, focus on it, take a break, do something else. And if there's a deadline, then okay, then let's come back for another 20 minutes, but then let's take a break so that it's not just the fatigue, probably really what you're talking about, that decision fatigue that sets in. And I think the other thing I share is, okay, like 3 boxes, like this is a for sure, this is out, this is gone. This is I'm really not sure area. And this is, I definitely want to keep. So do you guys do some sort of system like that with them if they really get overwhelmed and kind of stuck? Yeah.
Yeah. So the other little, I don't want to call it a trick, but another little way to kind of take things that are like each other and put it together. And then you realize, I don't need all 6 of those things that are pretty similar. I can pick my favorite. The rest of it can go away. And it makes it easier when you're like, why do I have all of these things? We all do. Yes. You get a new house and you fill it up. You have the space. Now you are able to see, that was kind of crazy. I really don't need all of those. I want to keep my favorite because it means the most to me. And then sometimes it's easier for people to be like, just donate the rest of those. I don't need those. So making sure that we're helping them keep the things that really need the most is just all the stuff, right? So
So with that, to me, it sounds like a lot of work, and it is a lot of work for you, emotionally, physically, and for the person that your client. So how do you balance that physical work of clearing out a space? I was going to say with the emotional component that comes with it. Yeah, they help you, but what about the client? Like, how do you help them and yourself balance that physical and that emotional?
Yeah. We really just continue to look at the big picture. Okay. Why are we doing this? Right? It's sometimes physical, and I'm not getting younger. But, it's also just, like I said, looking at the big picture, making sure that, because again, remembering our why, we've been there, we've done that. We know how overwhelming it can be. So helping somebody get to that point of being less overwhelmed, if we can, is what it's all about. Really. So just trying to be that sounding board for people and, help whenever we can. Usually at the end of the day, the payoff is a hug and a check. At the end of the day, we've made a bond with these people. We're part of their journey. We get paid for it, and we get a hug as well as that extra little bonus at the end. So
I'm sure people are so appreciative of you putting in the time and sharing such I'm going to say being so compassionate and just tender moments, because we know there's emotion there. There's no doubt. Even if there wasn't a warm or really close relationship, there's still emotion that comes from that, because there's emotion that they're beating themselves up on maybe or whatever. So it's just just an emotional time.
And sometimes we can be that, I guess a good phrase is that emotional insulation between family members. If mom and daughter are just like, Mom, why do you need to keep that? Well, it means a lot to me. So being that third person that can kind of be in between, that kind of separates them. Okay, Mom, tell me why it's so important to you. And then she can sometimes see, okay, I can let go of it now that I know, somebody knows why it's important to me.
Yeah.
And the daughter, so being that insulation, that buffer between family members that are clashing because of the emotion and all the things that are going on, sometimes can de-escalate the situation too. So, trying to be that buffer between family is also really important to us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh my gosh. I'm loving this. I'm loving this.
Psychology.
And I'm going back to what you said, like your husband was in hospice. And so really supporting, just has that compassionate, just exudes probably that compassion. And people probably feel that. And you, even in mortgage and banking, always talking and really solving problems and working through things and just helping with that. Both of those make me see, or have me looking at that like, this makes sense, that they would truly be super helpful walking through things like this. So just kind of summarizing some of that, when you're going through that, what would you want someone to know? And you've said multiple things, but what would you want them to know if they're just beginning this process besides call us? What else would you like them to know?
I mean, I think the biggest thing is going back to making sure that people understand what's important to you and why. The why is the most important part, in my opinion, because, everybody has those special things that mean a lot to them. But if somebody else doesn't understand why it's important, then they don't understand why you're keeping it, And honestly, the other thing is I started this journey, I kind of went through my own house and I was able to look at things a little more objectively. I have a china cabinet full of stuff, and anytime my grandma would give me something, she'd be like, hey, do you want this bowl? I'm like, yes, because grandma gave it to me. I'm going to keep it 100% all day long. But then I was able to kind of go back and look and be like, well, but I don't remember her ever using that bowl. So it doesn't really mean anything to me outside of she gave it to me. But I remember her using these glasses. So it was easier to detach from the things. Just because she gave it to me doesn't make it important. But these things are important because I remember her using them. Or, because it's all about the memories that are attached to that item. Yes. A lot of people, for example, when they move to a smaller space, they're like, well, I have to keep the dining room table, right? But we have to keep that because it's important. Well, when you really dig down deep into it, it's important because you remember all of the family dinners around that table, all of the laughter, all the stories. So it's really not about the thing anymore. It's about the memories attached to the thing. So if you can explain to people the memories attached to that, then it helps them understand why it's so important to you. Because they're like, I've talked about it. They understand. Okay, now I don't need the dining room table, because everybody knows the important part is the conversations around that table, the laughter, the stories, the having to expand because the family got so big that we didn't fit around this table anymore. Those are the things that are important, not necessarily the thing itself. Right? So I think just having that communication within the family, with your kids or your siblings or your parents or whoever, to understand, then, you have those memories that you can take with you.
Yeah, I love that. And you're
the biggest thing.
Yeah, you're spot on with it's not necessarily the thing. It's never the thing.
Right.
It's the memory that is attached to whatever the item is. And so I love too the archive, the app that you said. And then a friend just recently, actually it was my hairdresser, she said to me, Teresa, you need to do this. She didn't talk about that app, I don't think, but she talked about something. And I think they just do it. They have a Facebook page or whatever, and they log these items in there. This is grandma's tablecloth, and okay, my words, not hers. I don't need that air quotes thing anymore. I have the memory really, I've had it for a little while and I have the memory and I want to give this to someone else that can have it for a while and have that memory. And I know for myself, like my mom loved Halloween. And so when we were dividing up her things, she had this spider hat. It was ugly, crazy, but it was a spider hat that she had. And I can remember the first Halloween after she died, which was almost a year because she died in November. So almost a year later, almost to the day because it was the 3rd and Halloween's the 31st. I got that hat out and I wore that hat. People probably thought it was super crazy. It did depend on where I was going. It might have been set on my dashboard of my car for some things that I was doing. But after that first year, all those memories came back. And then it was like, I wonder if one of my other siblings would like this hat. And I still have the hat. I did try to give it to my grandson because he loved it. He came over and he saw it. He's like, oh my gosh, he had it on. He was playing. And I said, take it with you. But he did not. Yeah. But the memory is attached. But now I have that memory firmly in my heart, and it's no longer the thing that I need. Right. And so I love that you also kind of make sure that you share that with them. Yeah. But we never, at least for me, I never want to say you don't need that thing, because that sometimes they perceive as leaving that memory behind. And that's not what we want to do. We want to make sure that that memory is there. But just.
And sometimes there's guilt involved, right?
Oh,
well, great Aunt Helen gave me that, and it's like she could be so upset if I got rid of that face. Well, great Aunt Helen's been dead for 10 years. She's never going to know. So her being disappointed in you is never because she's not going to know. So keeping something because somebody gave it to you, if it doesn't mean something to you, just keeping it isn't going to keep their memory alive. You have that other thing, great Aunt Helen, that means more. So you don't need all the things from great Aunt Helen, right? You can keep the things she's never gonna know. Yeah. So, so unless someday you get to heaven and she's like, how come you didn't keep that vase? But so keeping something out of guilt is not a good reason to keep something.
Yeah. And I will just say sometimes people, I know with my mom, it was like she had all of these things. And if she knew it could be used for something else, she was very willing to give it away. And I did years ago a lot of silent auctions. I still do a lot of nonprofits. She would have brand new things and I would just say, hey, she'd like, I don't know what to do with this. Is there somebody in the family I can give it to? And I'm like, I don't know, but I can put that in an auction basket, so that the church makes money. And she was always so willing to say yes. It wasn't sentimental at all. It was just something she had. And so to offer, or for when they give you things yes, 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 it really is helping them with their overwhelm and their paralysis of what do I do with this stuff. So when a person says, do you want this? It should always be yes, even if you don't want to display it in your home.
Another thing too is there's so many great charities that take donations that help people who need a helping hand, who need us, who need a leg up, who've been in some sort of traumatic situation that getting some things for themselves that help them is also so fulfilling. I mean, we've taken a lot of things to a place in St. Louis that we love, that they help people who have nothing. And they allow these people to go in and go shopping. They get to pick out their things. So it's not just like, here's a bunch of charity stuff. They get to pick out what reflects their personality and, help them make a new space, a new home. And that has helped us a lot with that kind of that guilt of, well, should I keep it just because? Well, no, because that person can get a whole new life out of it and, really impact their future. So sometimes that outlook is helpful too, because helping people on any level is a great feeling. So if we can try to kind of get people to move that direction too, so that we help other people, right? So, we're all helping our community at the end of the day.
And I love at the very beginning, you talked about the linens and the towels and all of that and taking those to the Habitat or to the Humane Society, because I know it's probably been a year ago. I went through all of my stuff. I'm like, I do not, I mean, we had a lot of sheet sets. We had 3 girls here, and it's like, we don't need 10 sheet sets anymore. We have 1 bed. We do have a guest bed, but it's like, okay, maybe 4, if we take one off, we have a clean one to put on, but that's it. The rest, they need to go. Same with the towels.
Same with towels. I mean, nobody wants your old beat up towels, but those animals at the animal shelter, they don't care what it looks like. Yeah. So if it helps the people at the animal shelter, make life better for those animals. It sounds really silly to talk about making life better for an animal, but at the same time, they don't care what it looks like. No. They'll take it and use it till it's unusable.
Torn completely apart by the dog. Yep. So
again, the whole thing is keeping stuff out of landfills and helping it get a second life somewhere else and continue to get some use out of it. Somebody can. Yeah. So
I love that. So you had mentioned, I don't think you mentioned it earlier, but I think you mentioned it in some information that you sent here, that you're going to be spending your 50s now helping as many people as you can. What does that vision look like for you and your family?
I mean,
as you're getting older and aging. I mean, you talked a lot about it, but I also talked about the physical piece of that, emotional piece. You talked about your daughters, but they're teenagers. They're going to eventually go to college. Like, what does that look like for you and your husband moving into your 50s?
Yeah, I mean, thankfully, Tim was in management in the hospice, the hospice situation for a while. So he's done a lot with hiring and interviews and that sort of thing. So, we would like to build a team where I don't have to do the boxes and do all the things. Once you hit 50, your knees aren't as the same as they were in the 40s. But, we'd love to have a team that we can have multiple people helping different families at the same time. So, I mean, we'd love to be able to just grow our business for 10 or 12 or 15 years and then be able to just relax and enjoy our grandbabies that hopefully the kids will have at some point, not soon, but hopefully at some point, and be able to enjoy life knowing that we helped as many people as we could, and then pass the business on to the kids or somebody else that might be able to continue that journey. But, just having that, not having to go to work from 8 to 5 every day is great. Sometimes sitting at the computer at 6 o'clock in the morning is a little different, but
sure.
But just trying to spread that joy of what we're doing to try to help people is the most important part of this whole journey. So
I love that. There's I just look at it, warms my heart to know what you guys are able to do to really support people, that just knowing what a difficult task that is and to be a part of that. And especially at the end of it, when you get the hug and of course the check, but more importantly, the hug that you've become, close to them and you've really supported and helped them through really, I will say, a very difficult time in their life, and to just give them so much compassion and comfort. It just really, really warms my heart to know that you do that.
That's the goal.
Yeah, I love that. So 2 things I want you to share just real quickly, and everything will be in the show notes for those that are listening, but just maybe your website where they can find you. And also, I would love, because we are both in the St. Louis area, and you talked about a place in St. Louis where things could be taken to. I think people are always looking. I think I see that all the time on social media. Where can I take these things? And you obviously, you mentioned it, so you have found a place. I would love for you to mention that too before we end today.
Yeah, so the website is cluttercleaner.com. So, and then there's a link on there where you can find different locations, and we're obviously the St. Louis location. We're also on Facebook. It's Clutter Cleaner of STL, and we post different things, tips and things to think about. And so we'd love to hear from people that way. We ask questions periodically, and we'd love to hear their responses. And I found recently, it's called Home Sweet Home. It's in Maplewood, and they take donations. I think it's every morning from like 9 to 2-ish, something like that. And then the first Saturday of the month, I think, is what they do. But they take all sorts of things including furniture. It has to be, gently used.
Sure.
They'll take furniture and anything like that. And then, like I said, they partner with other organizations in St. Louis for people that are a victim of some sort of outrageous circumstance. They need a fresh start. So the clients, they can go in and they get to shop. They get to, there's a whole warehouse. We took a tour of the warehouse the other day, and it was amazing. They can pick up their couch and their chair and a table, and everybody gets a bed. Everybody in the family gets a bed. They get to pick out their own bedding, their own sheets, and all their dinnerware, and all the things so that it's not just, here's your stuff. It's they get to actually pick it out, stuff that they like that would represent them. And so that's really made an impact on us. Just taking a tour of the warehouse was amazing.
That sounds amazing.
And they do great things. Yeah. The other place is that we like to take like hardwoods, like desks and that sort of thing. I think you might have, did you go to the Restore Decor?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, just their mission as well. It's, again, a nonprofit. They're just trying to get things back into the community that help people in the community. And that's the thing that we really like, is those sorts of places that there's a place for a goodwill and that sort of thing, but places that actually want to put the money back into the community and give back to those families is so important. So those are a couple things that we like.
I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that, because I see that all the time. Like, where can I take stuff? People want to know. People want to donate things. They just want to find it. Just a side note. It just aggravates me so much when people have all this stuff out on the curb to go in the big trash pickup. I'm like, no, just or there's places that will pick that stuff up. So sometimes I'm like, I wish I had more time in a truck. I would just pick it up and take it there myself, but I don't. And my body would not allow it. So anyway, but yeah, so I want to thank you so much, Rebecca, for just sharing with me today, for not just sharing what you do, but for sharing why you do what you do. Your story is such a powerful reminder that out of some of life's hardest moments, purpose can emerge. And the way that you and your husband are choosing to walk alongside each other and others in their overwhelm is just warms my heart. Such a compassionate, understanding, and lived experiences. Truly meaningful work.
Thanks for having me. I've never done a podcast before, so it's really outside my comfort zone, but it's something we're really passionate about. So I'm happy to share that experience. So.
Definitely tell the passion that you have, for sure.
Yeah.
And so for those that are listening, if you are in a season where things feel overwhelming, whether it's physical space, emotional space, or both, I want you to hear this from me. You don't have to do it alone. Rebecca and I are here for you. And there are people just like us who understand not just the task, but the weight behind it. So thank you for being here. For all of those that are listening and are continuing to take steps wherever those may look like for you. We'll see you next time. So until next time, this is Teresa with Female Voices Life and Loss. Take care of your heart.
Thanks for listening to Female Voices Life and Loss. If this episode resonated with you, helped you feel seen, or gave language to something you've been carrying, we invite you to share it with someone who may need it. Be sure to follow the show so you don't miss future episodes and the powerful voices still to come.